Okay, so I'm going to explain the burning bush story. And after I explain the story, you need to go to the link in my bio and get my books, Secrets of the Bible from the East, where I'll talk about more of this stuff in the Bible and I make this stuff make sense. So a lot of us look at the burning bush story and we think about it as a story of there was a guy who was in the wilderness somewhere and he saw a bush that was on fire. Why was it on fire? We don't know why the bush was on fire. But then God spoke out the bush, or an angel spoke out the bush, or something like that. And boom, there you have it. That is the burning bush story to us. There was a guy, there was a bush, there was some fire, some stuff happened, and that's as much of the story that we can connect. But the reason why the story sounds nonsensical to us is because we don't have the proper tools to properly connect the dots. So, in the ancient world, there were certain areas that were considered what was called sacred space or sacred geography. And sacred geography were places or lands where gods resided at. And one of the places where people thought gods lived at were on mountains. This is where you get the concept of Mount Olympus from Greek mythology. Another place where people thought gods resided at were trees. And another place where people thought gods resided at were bushes. Now, what do all of these things have in common? They're places where sustenance is at. If you're near a mountain, there's probably going to be water. If you find a tree, maybe there might be something edible on the tree. Maybe you might find an apple tree or something like that. If you find a bush, maybe you might find a bush that has something edible on it, like some food. And so when you find a mountain, or when you find a tree, or when you find a bush, specifically if you find a bush in the middle of a desert, in the middle of a barren land, you basically are finding an oasis. You would think in your mind, this bush or this tree or this water, this was put here specifically for me to find by the gods. The gods have blessed me with water and food. The gods have blessed me with divine sustenance. So when Moses finds this burning bush, bushes are not random in Hebraic culture or in ancient Near Eastern culture. Bushes and trees and mountains were places where you were supposed to have divine experiences at. If you're going to have a divine experience with a deity, it's going to be near those spots. It's going to be near a mountain. It's going to be near a bush. It's going to be near a tree. That is exactly what you would expect. It was really common for people to go to these sacred spaces and perform rituals there. And so it wasn't uncommon for people to go to a mountain or go to a high place or to go to a tree or a bush and to do some type of ritual so that you could communicate with your deity, so you could talk with your God. It wasn't uncommon for people to go to a tree and mark up a tree as a form of a ritual so you could communicate with your deity. And what these people used to believe is they used to believe that the deities would talk back. Now, you actually see this idea in the book of Genesis when Jacob goes to a Bethel stone. Now, the stone is a special location. It's a sacred space. Hence the name. The name of the stone is called House of El, or House of God stone. So Jacob goes to this sacred space and he has a dream. And in the dream, he has a dream of angels ascending and descending on a ladder. Ascending and descending, ascending and descending. They are traversing heaven and earth. And that spot where Jacob lays down at, that's where some Jews believe that is the spot where they built the Jewish temple at. So these sacred spaces that people would go to, they would have rituals there. And after they performed their rituals, they would get some type of communication from their deity. Now, when I say communication, I don't mean with an audible voice, but they would get communication in the form of signs, in the form of visions, or in the form of dreams. And you can see this concept in Job 33:14. For God speaks time and time again, but a person may not notice it. In a dream, a vision in the night. And then this part right here, this is the interesting part. It says, when deep sleep comes over people as they slumber on their beds, he uncovers their ears and terrifies them with warnings. The NIV says, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, he may speak in their ears. And so trees, mountains, and bushes were places people would go so that they could communicate with deities, but they wouldn't get audible responses from deities. They would get signs, they would get visions, they would get dreams. And so what makes this encounter very strange with Moses in that time period is not the fact that Moses sees a bush and there's a sign. It's not the fact that this is a place where Moses has a divine encounter. The strangest part about this encounter is the fact that this divine being is audibly speaking with Moses face to face. That would have been the strangest part of that entire encounter. Now, what's up with the burning? Why is the bush burning? What's going on with the fire? Because we read the story, and like I said, this stuff is completely random. But if you've been liking this video so far, and if you enjoy the information, definitely go to the link in my bio and get my books. I have 6 books all together. If you're watching this on my TikTok, you can click on the link in my bio and definitely check out my books. So if you go to the book of Hebrews, it says, how about the angels? He says, he makes his angels winds, his servants flames of fire. And so in the ancient Near East, people used to believe that divine beings were made up of fire. And if you go to Exodus chapter 3, it talks about how the angel of the Lord is in the bush. Well, the angel of the Lord is in the bush, and the angel of the Lord is on fire. So just a quick AI search, and it'll even tell you in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic literature, seraphim are celestial beings that are often described as burning ones and are associated with fire. We also know in the story of Elijah, when Elijah goes to heaven, God sends a fiery chariot to take him into the heavenly realm. You also have the story in the book of Daniel where the kids are about to be burned alive in a fiery furnace. And then Nebuchadnezzar says, I see a 4th person in the fire. I think it was the 4th person. He says, I see an extra person in the fire and they look like a son of man. Now, son of man is a title for a divine being. I see somebody in the fire and this person looks like a divine being. Well, that's not a coincidence because they used to believe that divine beings and angels were on fire. So the angel is in the bush and the angel in the bush is on fire, making the bush consumed with this fire. So this is not regular fire of a regular flame. This is the fire of a divine being, which is where you get this concept of how the bush is on fire, but it's not completely consumed, because it's not necessarily the bush that's burning, it's the angel inside of the bush that is a fiery divine being. And it's not a coincidence that Moses sees this event happening at a bush, because bushes, trees, mountains, the sea, these were all portals between the physical realm and the heavenly realm. Now, when I say portal, don't think about a person stepping through, but portal in the sense, these were places where the veil between heaven and earth was thought to be thin. And at the right place, at the right time, at the right celestial alignment, that was the most opportune time to have communication with the gods. And these are only some of the secrets that are in your Bible from the East. Go get my books and stop playing.